Hello, General Biology, and welcome to the third in our screencast series for Chapter 7, Cell Structure and Cell Function. And as promised, we're going to start off with a video. So here we go. Oops, if I can find my pointer.
Cells are the smallest living units of an organism. All cells have three things in common, no matter what type of cell they are. All cells have a cell membrane, which separates the inside of the cell from its environment, cytoplasm, which is a jelly-like fluid, and DNA, which is the cell's genetic material. There are two broad categories of cells. The first category is eukaryotic cells. They have organelles, which include the nucleus and other special parts. Eukaryotic cells are more advanced, complex cells, such as those found in plants and animals. The second category is prokaryotic cells. They don't have a nucleus or membrane-enclosed organelles. They do have genetic material, but it's not contained within a nucleus. Prokaryotic cells are always one-celled or unicellular organisms, such as bacteria. So, what are organelles? Organelle means little organ. Organelles are the specialized parts of a cell that have unique jobs to perform. Let's start with the nucleus, the control center of the cell. The nucleus contains DNA, or genetic material. DNA dictates what the cell is going to do and how it's going to do it. Chromatin is the tangled, spread-out form of DNA found inside the nuclear membrane. When a cell is ready to divide, DNA condenses into structures known as chromosomes. The nucleus also contains a nucleolus, which is a structure where ribosomes are made. After ribosomes leave the nucleus, they will have the important job of synthesizing or making proteins. Outside the nucleus, the ribosomes and the rest of the organelles float around in cytoplasm, which is the jelly-like substance. Ribosomes may wander freely within the cytoplasm or attach to the endoplasmic reticulum, sometimes abbreviated as ER. There are two types of ER. Rough ER has ribosomes attached to it, and smooth ER doesn't have ribosomes attached to it. The endoplasmic reticulum is a membrane-enclosed passageway for transporting materials, such as the proteins synthesized by ribosomes. Proteins and other materials emerge from the endoplasmic reticulum in small vesicles, where the Golgi apparatus, sometimes called the Golgi body, receives them. As proteins move through the Golgi body, they're customized into forms that the cell can use. The Golgi body does this by folding the proteins into usable shapes, or adding other materials onto them, such as lipids or carbohydrates. Vacuoles are sac-like structures that store different materials. Here, in this plant cell, the central vacuole stores water. Going back to the animal cell, you will see an organelle called a lysosome. Lysosomes are the garbage collectors that take in damaged or worn-out cell parts. They are filled with enzymes that break down this cellular debris. The mitochondrion is an organelle that is the powerhouse for both animal and plant cells. During a process called cellular respiration, the mitochondria make ATP molecules that provide the energy for all of the cell's activities. Cells that need more energy have more mitochondria. Meanwhile, the cell maintains its shape through a cytoskeleton. The cytoskeleton includes the thread-like microfilaments, which are made of protein, and microtubules, which are thin, hollow tubes. Some organisms, such as plants, that are photoautotrophic, meaning they capture sunlight for energy, have cells with an organelle called a chloroplast. The chloroplast is where photosynthesis happens. It's green because it has a green pigment called chlorophyll. Plant cells also have a cell wall outside of their cell membranes that shape, support, and protect the plant cell. Animal cells never have a cell wall. There are many other unique structures that only some cells have. Here are just a few. In humans, for example, the respiratory tract is lined with cells that have cilia. These are microscopic hair-like projections that can move in waves. This feature helps trap inhaled particles in the air and expels them when you cough. Another unique feature in some cells is flagella. Some bacteria have flagella. A flagellum is like a little tail that can help a cell move or propel itself. The only human cell that has a flagellum is a sperm cell. In summary, remember, eukaryotic cells are plant and animal cells with a nucleus and membrane-enclosed organelles, while prokaryotic cells are unicellular organisms without these things. All cells have a cell membrane, cytoplasm, and genetic material. And even though only plant cells have chloroplasts, both plant and animal cells have mitochondria.
Okay, let's take a deep breath, and we're going to go over those organelles one by one, and I have listed on the side just some generalizations. I'll talk about them a little bit further, so you'll have to take notes on those. So stop this to take those notes, and then we have the picture on the other side so that you can actually see the organelle. Okay, so we're going to start off with the first organelle of eukaryotic cells, and that is the nucleus. So this round purple structure here is the nucleus. It's been cut open here so that you can see the inside. It is surrounded by a double membrane, and that membrane has pores on it. So these are not flowers, they're actual pores that are going to allow materials to enter and leave the nucleus. The nucleus is thought of as being the control center of the cell because it contains both DNA and RNA. So that's one of the reasons. DNA directs or contains the directions to make proteins. With the help of RNA, these proteins can be made, and the proteins are part of cell structure and function. Alright, sorry there, I had a little bit of a disruption, so I'm not exactly sure where I left off, so I'm going to probably be repeating some things on the nucleus. So eukaryotic cells have the nucleus, and it's a round, dense region, usually located in the center of the cell. Some cells can have more than one nucleus, and they would be called multinucleated. Some cells do more work and therefore need more of the genetic information because the DNA and the RNA are what actually controls the directions, the metabolism of the cell. The DNA has a chemical sequence that directs cellular activity, so that is why the nucleus is also referred to as the control center, because the DNA is located in there. RNA is a helper molecule with DNA in directing the production of proteins, and proteins are responsible for cell structure and function. And we'll talk about protein synthesis, which is the making of proteins, in a later chapter. Inside of the nucleus is this thread-like material that you see here. That's called chromatin, and chromatin is the way that the DNA appears during different stages of the life of the cell. Chromatin is actually Greek and means thread-like. So what that means is during just natural parts of the cell's life, the genetic material will be in this long thread-like material. Down here in this picture, the chromatin kind of looks like ramen noodles, kind of spaghetti-like. It's non-distinct. And we'll talk more about the structure of the chromatin in just a few minutes. Inside the nucleus is another dense region known as the nucleolus. And the nucleolus does not have a cell membrane or a plasma membrane like most organelles do. It's another one of the exceptions to the rules. Not too much was really known about the nucleolus. We knew that it did disappear during cell division, and as the cell was dividing, something else would appear, so they thought that there was a connection with that. Now they know that that this nucleolus actually contains ribosomal subunits and some RNA nucleotides. So they believe that it is responsible for making ribosomes and the nucleotides that are used in the production of proteins. So that's located inside of the nucleus, and that's all held together by another colloidal suspension that we refer to as the nucleoplasm. So this lighter purple that you see here. Now, the directions for making the proteins is inside of the nucleus, but the proteins are actually made outside of the nucleus, so there has to be a way to get those directions out, and that's through these nuclear pores. We're going to see a really good video later on that really shows how that happens, and I will take you through that step by step. Okay, we'll come back to this. This is the endoplasmic reticulum that we'll talk about later on that you see connected here, and that lies close to the nucleus because, again, the directions to make the proteins are here, and the endoplasmic reticulum helps to transport those proteins. So there's a direct relationship and a connection with that. So let's focus on this chromatin. The chromatin is the genetic material that is made up of this chemical molecule of DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. And this DNA, there's like 6 feet of it in one nucleus, is wrapped around special proteins that are called histones. And when they wrap around the histones, they form a structure called the nucleosomes. So if you can see in this picture right here, here's the double helix of DNA. And there's the histones that it wraps around, it coils tightly around, and each one of these little clumps is known as a nucleosome. And that's how so much information, this 6 foot of information, can fit together all inside of this nucleus. I'm looking at my time. I'm almost up for the 15 minutes. Let's come back and talk about chromatin in the next screencast.